welcome. My name is Matthew Peterson. I'm a trainer at Pragmatic Works, and we're located up in Northeast Florida. And last week I did a video on just some basic filtering principles within Power Apps. And this week I want to take it just a little bit further, go a little bit more advanced in it. So without any further ado, let's just go take a look at our app and see what we can do with some more advanced filtering and also some delegation warnings that are going to pop up for us. So as you see in this app right here, I currently have a gallery and it is showing the different columns that I have chosen to bring back. So I brought back the title column for my SharePoint list, the favorite color of the person that they chose, and then who it is actually assigned to. And this is what my SharePoint list actually looks like. It's always good to know what the data is. So we have title, favorite color, date, cat or dog, favorite number, and who we are assigned to. And this is a people picker column right here. So if we come back to our app, what we currently have set up right here is on this gallery, and also just for a quick review, if you didn't watch the video last week, and if you didn't, take a look down below if you want to get into some basic filtering principles. But what I did is I put an input control here of a drop down. And for the items, I said that I want the items to be the distinct values of my favorite color column in that SharePoint list. So it gets rid of all the duplicates that are in there. It only returns it once. So if 82 people had picked red, red should only show up once. And so if I hit the play button, I come over here and I select purple. Now I'm only seeing records that had purple. If I go green, I only show green, etc., etc. Well, the way we got that filter to work is on your gallery, when you're ready to filter items, you select your items property dropdown, and then you put in a filter statement. So this is saying, hey, I want to filter out my records from that SharePoint list, and then I give it the condition. And I wanted it to be, I want to say, hey, look at the favorite color column and look at what is in the actual dropdown. And we want those to be equal. So this was called dropdown 2. Look at what is selected, and then we have to put dot result, because the dot result comes in because I had used the distinct value or the distinct function to populate this in, which creates a table in the background. So that's why I have to put dot result there, not just dot selected. And that's kind of where we left off last week. Now, what else could we do? Well, what if you wanted to have two drop downs to filter your gallery? So for example, we wanted our end users to pick a color, and then maybe we want to see it based on who the record has been assigned to, because I have an assigned to column. Well, we pretty much go through the same process here. So what we'll do is we'll come in, and I'm going to come right on over into my insert ribbon. So in my insert ribbon, I'm going to come over here. We're going to go with an input, and I'm going to go with a drop down. And so again, this is just a basic drop down. It's currently called drop down 3, but obviously if I was making this for real, I would definitely rename this. And for the items here, what I wanted to do is I want to use that distinct property again. So let me zoom on in. I'm going to say I want all the distinct values from my patch records list. So that is the source that I wanted to look at. And then I say, what column do I want to look at? Well, I want that assigned to column. That's where we have all the people that we've assigned these to. And the assigned to column right now at this point is giving me red because the assigned to column, the way that I have this set up, is it is a people picker in SharePoint, which means there's more even though we just see one value in that column, there is a whole bunch of stuff attached to it. The department that they're from, the city, any kind of claims, their full name, etc. So I want to bring in the email address. So I'm going to say .email. So I want to bring back all the email addresses that were in there. So in just a second, we should see this populate up. I'll hit the play button. And now all the email addresses that are currently in the SharePoint site are here, which is great. So now we just have to do a little bit more functionality with the filter. So currently my gallery is being filtered by the color from our dropdown. When you filter, it doesn't have to just be on one condition. You could put it on two conditions. So I'm going to come right back on up here, and I'm going to take out my end closing parentheses, and now I'm going to do another comma to tell it the next filter expression I want it to do. And now I want it to do it based on the assigned to column. So I'm going to say the assigned to. All right, and look what we're getting right here automatically. It says assigned to. It's already saying, hey, assigned to is a special column. That's not just a free text. you have to be more specific about what values in that assigned to. Because again, remember, we've got claims, department, etc. So I want it to be the assigned to dot email. That is what I'm trying to reference. Now, I want the assigned to email from that list to equal what is in our actual dropdown right here. So in order to do that, we're going to say, let's equal this out. And we have to reference our dropdown, which I believe I called ours dropdown 3. So we're going to go with dropdown 3. So look at dropdown 3, which is a control. So that's not enough. We want something from that control. So we're going to go with dot selected text. And it goes, again, it says dot selected text. Wait, that's a record because remember, how did we make this actual dropdown? We made it using a distinct function, which actually creates a table in the background. So we have to say, what do we want from that table? Well, we want those values. And this is any time when you think you have your text right and something just still isn't quite working, always put that period or the dot, so to speak, at the end, and Power Apps will give you a little bit of a nudge in the right direction. So now let's come over here and let's see if we put in our dot. Let's see what they're asking us. What are they going to give us? And it's either going to be result or value. So let's go with result. And we will close this out. We want the results from that actual table. Now notice I'm not seeing anything. I've got green and my email address. So if we come back to the SharePoint site, I'm with purple. I also have one with red, which is, so it's working properly. Let's go hit the play. I'm going to hit red now. And there we go. So now you've learned how to take two drop-downs and filter a gallery based on the two input controls that are there. Now you might be saying, Matt, are there some other things we can do with this? There is a lot. And again, I'm just putting these in little increments throughout the next few weeks. But one issue that I had, that someone had emailed me about, they said, hey, I like these drop-downs, but is there any way to not have them populated to start with? And there is. So if you select a drop-down, there is a property in the property dropdown. So I've got my favorite color one. And at the very top of our property dropdown, we have this allow empty selection. And currently it's always set to false, which means it's always going to be populated with something. But if you want it to be completely blank to start with, you change this word false to true. And you might be saying, Matt, nothing has happened here. Well, what would happen is if we were to publish this out, play it, and come to this screen, it would start off as a blank. However, anytime that you're just trying to test within an app, sometimes it's good just to have a little icon off to the side that does resets for you. And so this might be something you want to put in your app later down the road as well. So I'm going to show you how you can just reset things. So if you go to the insert ribbon, I'm going to pick a really simple icon for this, reload. But it doesn't matter, even though it's called reload isn't going to be what we're doing. We're actually going to be resetting our item here. So for my icon that I currently have, I'm going to go to the on select. And where it currently says false, I'm going to come in here and put in reset. And then we just pick what control do we want to be reset. What do we want to go back to kind of like its default value, so to speak. And so I want that drop down 2 because that's my color one. So I'm going to say let's go with drop down 2. And now when I come in here and hit the play button, when we reset, now we have nothing. So this might be something that you want to put in your control and maybe put like a little text label that says, make your selections to see records. And so that way they don't see anything that is pre-populated. You are making them actually do those selections. So now if I come in here and let's say I'll pick Mitchell right here and I could go purple, don't see anything. Go to red. There we go. He was assigned someone who had a favorite color of red. So that is, again, I'll show that feature for your drop-down. If you don't want it to be populated with anything to start off with, you go with allow empty selection. And feel free to put as many of these drop-downs in here as you want to. Now, the next thing that usually some people want to do when they develop their apps is they say, Matt, is there a way to kind of make it secure to where only the user sees their records? I don't want them seeing everyone else's because maybe it's sensitive information. Maybe they are, employee surveys or evaluations or whatever. And you're like, I just want to see the records that the individual user created. And you definitely can do that. So what I'm going to do to start that with, I'm no longer going to use this drop-down filter anymore because these have the actual email addresses, and I only want it to be me who is logged in. So I am, for now, going to go back to my gallery, and I'm just going to put it back into our favorite colors again. And also, just so you can see that code again, the way I got that filter down, as I said, I want it to be based on the color from this drop-down, and then the email address from this drop-down. And that was giving the end user lots of flexibility to see all the records out there. However, we are going to change this up. So I'm going to get rid of all of this and just go back to the favorite colors. And so again, this drop down no longer means anything. So you know what? I'm just going for now to change the visibility. I want to keep this for later. I'm going to take my visibility and turn it to false, just in case I need to come back to this app at a future point. Don't need to recreate the wheel there. All right, so here's what I want to do. I want the individual user who comes in to only see their records. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to filter down the actual gallery. So I'm going to come to my gallery, and I'm going to put another part in here to the filter. Now, before this, it was the email that was in that dropdown. Well, I still want to use email, but I always want it to be the email address of the person who is logged in, because in that assigned to, we have all the email addresses of the people that they are assigned to. So here we go. We're going to say, I want you to look at the assigned to column. And again, it's going, wait, the assigned to column is that special people picker. All right, you got to give me some more information. What part of that assigned to column do you want me to reference? So I want you to reference the email address that is in that assigned to column. And I want it to equal, and I'll zoom right back on in, I want it to equal the person who's currently logged in. And we have a function for that. It's called the user function. The user function will return, and it's really easy. You don't have to give it any more information other than user, open parentheses, close parentheses. The user function returns a record, and it's your individual record as you were logged into this application. And it can return 3 things back for you. So I'm going to go dot. The 3 things it can pull back are your email, full name, and image. Well, for this scenario, I want my email to be pulled up because I want my email to equal the email of the column. So I'm going to go user.email, and I'm going to close this off. And if all things work correctly, there we go. I was assigned to red. If we can remember, I was not assigned to anything in purple, I believe. Oh, I am assigned to something in purple. Maybe it's green. Green is nothing for me. So notice I'm only seeing the records that actually have my email address in the row, which is pretty great. However, there is an issue that you might have noticed. And if you're new to Power Apps, this is something that does happen with certain functions. You get what's called a delegation warning. And the way that we know we have delegation warnings, there's 2 ways of figuring that out. One is when you see this blue. Anytime you see blue in your formulas, that means you're going to have a delegation warning. And again, I'm about to talk about what that is. The other way that you can find out that you have a delegation warning is if you come right on over to the little warning icon, the little triangle that we see here. So the little triangle that we actually see is right here. And if we hover over it, it's going to say delegation warning. The filter part of this formula might not work correctly. What does that mean? Well, delegation is Power Apps doesn't really do any work. Power Apps always sends the request to the data source, and the data source does the work and gives Power Apps the results. However, there are some times when the data source doesn't know how to do the operation you're asking it. And this is one of those times. SharePoint is saying, I do not, and SharePoint was working perfectly. The very first filtering was excellent. But this command right here, this user.email, it doesn't know how to handle that. So what happens? Is it still going to work? Yes and no. Let me show you where we're going to do some settings on this. So if you come up here to File, and you come on over to Settings, and you go to Advanced Settings, this is where you find out about delegations. So what this is currently saying, the default value is 500, meaning that if there's a delegation warning, which we obviously have, Power Apps says, okay, I'm going to do the work for SharePoint because SharePoint doesn't know what the heck's going on. So I will do the work, but I'm only going to do it for the first 500 records. So if we use this function, and let's say the 800th record was assigned to me, that would not show up in this gallery. Only the first 500 records, if they were assigned to me, actually show up. Anything after that would not be there. Even though they're part of the data source, Power Apps just refuses to do the work for us. Well, what's the limit? How far can you set this up to? You can set your delegation warning up to 2,000. So 2,000 is the limit. But what I want to do is I want to set it just to 1, just to really show how this works. I like to say the proof is in the pudding. So as we come over here, I set the delegation warning to 1. So it's saying Power Apps will only do this for the first record in SharePoint. Well, let's see if that's actually true. So now when I come on over, purple assigned to Matt Peterson. Okay, that looks about right because that is the first record and it is assigned to me. So now I'm going to go to another record assigned to me, which in this case is one for red. So I'm going to hit the play button. And now when I come to red, notice I am not there because we set the delegation warning to only 1, so Power Apps refuses to do any work after 1. If I come back on over and I fix this back to the settings, advanced settings, take the value and turn it back up to like 500, we'll come on over and we'll give it a minute here. We'll hit play and let me come back to purple and let me come back to red. There we go. Now my record is showing again. So you might be saying, Matt, that's great. If my records are going to be 2,000 or less, what happens if I still need this functionality and I'm going to have over 2,000 records? What do I do? Well, for this delegation warning, I can show you a fix. And this isn't the only one. There's lots of different ones that will pop out. And usually I just go and research. I really just go to Google or one of my other trainers here at Pragmatic Works and say, have you ever seen this delegation warning? Do you know a workaround to it? And this is one of the more common ones, so let me show you the quick fix. So I'm going to come back to our gallery, which again, what's throwing off the delegation warning here is this user.email. So normally when you find what's giving you the issue, you try to see, is there another way to get that value? Because if there's another way to get that value, everything is perfect. If not, you have to say, what's the next best function to give me my results? So the other way to get the email address is actually store it as a variable when you start your app. And that actually is going to fix it. So let me show you here. So on the app itself, this is where I can store variables at the very beginning when our application is run. And as you can see, I've got some colors that I just stored in here for me to use. But I'm going to store another variable. So I'm going to go semicolon, shift enter. I'm going to say, let's set a variable. And I'm going to call it var logged in user email. You can give it any name that you want to, comma. And now I want to store my email address in. So I'm going to use that same function of user dot email. All right, so now when this application starts, my email address will be stored into this variable. So normally when you're just playing with the app outside of here, right when you open the app, it runs on start. But because we're in the design studio, we need to tell Power Apps to actually run this right now. And so we don't have to close it out, reopen it. So if you come next to app and you hit your ellipses and click run on start, this will actually run those codes right away for us. Now here's where we bring this in. Back on the gallery in the filter, remember what it didn't like was that user.email. That's what was giving us those blues. So I'm going to now get rid of that and I'm going to bring in the email that was stored in the variable, which was called var, and let me come out a little bit, var logged in user email. And we close that off with the parentheses. Notice we no longer see that delegation warning, which means this is going to work for as many records as we have, whether it's under 2,000 or over 2,000. And just to show, there's my red, here's purple, and nothing for green, and I don't think I had anything for blue. But it's definitely working, and so that is how we made the fix. So what I did is on that original, the app screen itself, I actually stored my email address as a variable. So if you need to restrict the records for your end users to only see the records that were assigned to them, this is a way to do it. If you're using SharePoint, you're going to get that delegation warning. Now, if you're in SQL Server, this delegation warning doesn't happen because SQL Server understands the request that we're giving it. So each data source is going to be unique to the delegation warnings that are thrown at you. I hope to do some more videos in the future about more other kinds of delegation problems. But for today, that's all the time we have. I hope you enjoyed. Comment, like below. Let me know what other future videos you would enjoy seeing. And if you have questions, let me know. I hope you enjoyed.